Hey, what's up? Will Sherlin again with Gutter Fighting Secrets. Today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different than what I usually discuss here on this channel. We're going to be talking about food and water storage as it relates to prepping. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about storing food and water and prepping. Now, a lot of guys say, well, if I buy like a month of MREs, I'll be good. And if I buy a couple of cases of water, I'll be fine. But the reality of it is, and you'll see as you watch this video, that's not true, not at all. There's kind of a lot that goes into storing food and water for the long term. You never know what's going to happen, whether it be storms like just happened in the eastern seaboard, whether it be hurricanes happen down south, whether it be civil unrest, anything could happen. And you don't want to be the guy or girl out there last minute trying to fight the crowds, literally, at the supermarkets or whatever. You want to be the guy or girl who is sitting tight at their home, kind of making those last minute preparations and realizing and having the comfort and knowledge that you have already taken care of all of this. You've got a month or two worth of food, you've got a month or two worth of water, you've got enough for your family plus however many guests happen to show up, and you're good. What you can start to focus on then is maybe a little extra security around your home, maybe some last minute details, grabbing some gas for your vehicles, topping off your tanks, and stuff like that. Now, this is going to be the first part in a series that I'm going to be doing on this channel. We'll discuss medical supplies and prepping up on your medical skills so that you don't have to be worried about, are the EMTs going to show up? Do I need to go to the doctor? Obviously, consult your physician, go to your doctor whenever you need to. However, you want to have those basic skills and those basic supplies to be able to go ahead and treat life-threatening emergencies on your own. We will also be going over things like defense, home security, stuff like that. But this is going to be a very special kind of topic or series that we're going to cover. I've been researching this stuff and learning about it as I go for years now. What I'm going to attempt to do is impart some of the most practical knowledge on you guys from what I've learned. Don't take my word for it. As I always say, I would watch other channels and other guys to get better ideas. But I do seem to think that I have it kind of down to a science as far as for me. Now, for you, it might be different. And for everybody else, you know, look, always research, expand on your knowledge, and distill it down. It's like Bruce Lee says, I always say this, take what is useful, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is your own. That's kind of the best way to go about this prepping stuff, as with any other thing in the martial art. And as I said before in a previous video, prepping ties into martial arts because it's all about survival and your own welfare and taking care of yourself, your family, making sure everybody's safe. With all that being said, let us go and jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to look at when it comes to planning your food storage is how much food should I actually store? My answer to that would be as much as you want. But in my personal opinion, the minimum amount of food that you should store is 1 month worth of food, 3 meals a day for each one of your family members, plus 2 or 3 guests. Now the reason that I'm saying plus 2 or 3 guests is we all know that when a storm happens or something happens, typically you're going to have guests, whether it be family members or friends or neighbors. Now, that's not a bad thing at all, presuming you like these people, of course. And the reason that this is not a bad thing at all is because presuming these people can pull their weight and they're not a complete waste of life, then they can help out around the house with chores, maybe lighten the load for you and your family a little bit. Perhaps a couple of these people have a specific set of skills, such as a doctor or a mechanic or an electrician, something like that that would come in extremely handy. And worst comes to worst, you can always have them help out and pull security. And I'm not necessarily talking about handing them a rifle and a vest and saying, okay, stand at the door. But it really doesn't take much to hand someone a flashlight and perhaps even a radio if you have one and say, all right, you stay up for the next 6 hours or so, you know, try not to fall asleep. We're concerned about looters or whatever. If you hear anything outside or if you hear any banging at the door, go ahead, wake me up, and then, you know, either you can deal with it or what have you. Or maybe that guest is a cop or something like that, has some military experience, doubly better. But anyway, I digress. We're planning on at least 1 month worth of food and water for your family plus guests. So we're going to be doing a little bit of math here. Don't worry, I'll take care of it for you, even though math is not my strong suit. But if we're going to be doing 3 meals a day for 31 days, that comes out to 93 individual meals per person. And let's say that we have a family of 5. That comes out to about 465 meals, individual meals. Then let's say we've got 3 guests. That's going to roughly come out to 744 individual meals for 31 days for 8 people. Now, that might seem like a daunting amount of food to store. You might be thinking to yourself, I don't even have that much storage space for food. But luckily, the good news is most of what you're going to be going ahead and storing is not individual meals. It's a box of oatmeal, box of pasta, family-sized canned beans, perhaps. Mostly what you would keep at your pantry. I mean, some of these things you might want to supplement, like you can go ahead and get freeze-dried vegetables and fruit, which actually brings me into kind of a side topic here, is be careful on what you're actually storing. Number one reason is if you've ever experienced menu fatigue, I know I have, it really sucks. You don't want to be eating stuff that either tastes bad or it's not what you like or you bought it just because you think it would store well. You really want to go ahead and plan this out. Take into account what you like. What are your favorite foods? What do you really like to eat? Then take into account, like, what is your family like? Are there any allergies? Is there anything that, your kids just don't eat? Something like that. Definitely avoid getting Spam and canned tuna fish and stuff like that if you guys don't normally eat that stuff. Get what you like. Meals are going to become, especially in an emergency situation, a really pivotal point of the day that everybody looks forward to. And another thing is you want to make sure that whatever you're eating has solid nutritional value. It is not the time to get sick or to get nutritionally and vitaminally deprived during an emergency. You want to make sure you're getting your vitamins, not only supplementing, a multivitamin perhaps, but definitely make sure that you're getting your fruits and veggies and your protein from your food. Just because it's stored food doesn't mean it has to taste like shit or not have any nutritional value. So if you're normally a healthy eater, you might want to store normally healthy foods. And if you're normally more of a junk food eater, well, maybe you should store some junk food type things that are, a little more on the healthy side, because you're really going to want to make sure that you have that proper nutrition in there. And proper nutrition doesn't have to sacrifice taste by any means. You can make what you like and still be healthy about it. And you can also obviously pickle fruits and vegetables, vegetables and stuff like that. A lot of us out there these days don't really have those skills to do such. So, buying freeze-dried stuff can be kind of an easier option. Now, MREs, I'm not going to say don't get them, but I'm definitely going to say don't rely on them. It's a good supplemental type of thing. Like, you can pick up boxes of MREs for a reasonable price. But I'll warn you about these MREs is there's a lot of different companies out there that make them. Make sure and do your research and make sure that you're getting, number one, MREs that have a solid expiration date. You're going to want something that's at least a couple of years away from its expiration date. Another thing I'll tell you about is get from a reputable source. You want to make sure that these are nutritionally appropriate for your needs. And another thing is a lot of these manufacturers out there sell mixed up meals and meals that are just gross. You want to make sure that if you're getting something, try it. Maybe get an extra box with an assortment of the menu and try them all before you go ahead and store them or, buy them or whatever. But the good news there is since we've been involved in numerous wars over the past decade, they have come out with more and more tasty and, better for you MREs out there. It just takes kind of some research and finding out what works for you. Now, another thing with the MREs is, as I said, it's supplemental, so definitely don't try to eat them every night. What I would personally plan on doing is having a couple of MREs for your family, every week. Don't go crazy with it. Now, these things are really nice. One thing I'll kind of tell you about is make sure that you periodically check them. They have to be stored at a proper temperature. And, you want to also make sure that you store them maybe inside a plastic bin or something like that. I've had the problem in the past of, a mouse can get into them or something like that. So definitely check them maybe monthly, bi-monthly at the most, and just make sure that they're good to go. And they definitely should be good to go because this is what they're made for. Now, one more thing about these MREs, and this kind of leads into another subject here, is sometimes they can have the tendency to kind of bind up your system. I'm not sure about these days, but I know they used to be kind of made to almost make you a little constipated so that you'd hold your nutrition better in the field. And I've heard that actually the gum that they used to put in there was kind of a laxative agent, so to speak, and you'd be supposed to chew the gum so that you could take a shit later on. I know I've certainly felt more bloated when I've been in the field for a couple days at a time eating MREs. So what I would recommend is maybe keep some Metamucil, fiber pills, whatever, in that same box where you have the MREs, and in case they're needed, they are there, and those can certainly come in handy. And as I said, and we'll talk about this more in the medical section of this series, but take a multivitamin every day, as well as a C, I would recommend, because like I said, you definitely don't want to run a risk of getting sick, and also when you're in a stressful situation, emergency situation, your body tends to deplete vitamins more than usual. So taking a multi every day, possibly even a C every day, could really increase your chances of staying healthy and just feeling good. So definitely don't neglect your health. Don't neglect vitamins when it comes to prepping. Another thing that I like to keep on hand, just for everyday use, but also I store a little bit of protein powder. Protein, obviously everyone knows the benefits of protein these days. Some people say we go a little overboard, but if you were to keep a big bottle of protein powder on hand, that's not a bad thing at all to kind of supplement. Maybe you find yourself cooking a lot of pasta or something like that. Well, you want that protein in there as well. So having a scoop of that could make a nice snack, and certainly it goes a long way. So protein powder is definitely a good thing. Also, instant coffee is definitely a plus. I know I like to have a cup of coffee when I wake up in the morning. If I don't get it, maybe I get a little grouchy. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm not going to bother buying shitloads of coffee grinds. What I'm going to do is buy either a big bag or decent enough tin of freeze-dried coffee, keep that on hand, and in the morning, bam, you got your coffee. What you can also do is buy like a gallon or two. You can also even buy like 5-gallon buckets of powdered milk. I know they even make non-dairy powdered milk. They make 2% milk, whole milk, skim powdered milk. So there's a good variety out there. And the nice thing about these powdered milks is they definitely do make 5-gallon buckets, which ain't nothing to throw in the closet or something like that. And everybody likes a good glass of milk. It's definitely something comforting about that. Personally, I do enjoy a good glass of milk every now and again. So a little powdered milk or something like that, or even some hot chocolate is not a bad idea. Now we're on the subject of hot chocolate. That brings me into snacks. Snacks are a big plus. If you can store some comfort food, that's going to go a long way. Because as I said, people are going to definitely look forward to meals. People are going to be eating a little more anyway. Your body is definitely going to need more calories just due to the stress that you're under. So, I like to store some candy, maybe some Snickers bar, peanut butter cups, and have enough for everybody. Something that somebody can just grab, maybe a little dessert, maybe in between. Also snacks, healthy snacks is a good thing. I like to eat about 6 times a day to kind of keep my metabolism revved. Maybe in a situation like this, you don't want it so revved, but in either case, having some good tasting candy bars, some good tasting protein bars, even some beef jerky, stuff like that to just kind of snack on is really going to go a long way too. So if you can take into account and add some snacks in there per person per day or whatever, that's going to be a big plus. And this kind of leads me into the hydration part of this. Obviously, you're going to want water, but look, if you really like Diet Cokes, my girlfriend loves Diet Cokes. So if you can store, a couple cases of that, maybe some Gatorade, whatever you like. Don't be afraid to go ahead and put some of those in the closet or wherever you're keeping your stuff. Just make sure they don't freeze, and you'll be good to go. I would recommend maybe, a can of soda per person per day or something like that. It's not going to go too crazy, but, in the event that you're really stuck and you can't get more supplies, it's going to make your life a lot more comfortable. So the idea is having what you want and what you need, but staying comfortable. You want to be the guy who's in your castle, very comfortable. Maybe you've got your generator or something going, and obviously we'll talk more about that later as well. But you've got what you need, and you're not panicking. So you got your gen, you got your fuel, you got your toilet paper. You got means to clean up and everything. And this is a nice thing as well, is buying extra paper towels and paper plates, because maybe you don't got a lot of water to do the dishes. And the nice thing about paper plates is you can burn them. So even if it's in the wintertime, you can burn them in your fireplace should you have one, or outside, generate a little extra heat. Or even if it's the summertime, you want to be able to go ahead and get rid of your trash. Maybe the trash service isn't really running. You don't want to let extra trash bags and shit lying around producing disease and shit like that. So being able to burn paper plates and napkins and stuff like that, even paper cups, is a very solid option. Definitely going to help you cut down on the amount of garbage and trash that you're producing. Now, this leads me into, like I said, the hydration part of this. Now, what I would recommend personally is a gallon of water per person per day. I know I've heard it said about a half gallon per person per day is fine, but if you look at it this way, if you store a gallon per person per day, that leaves you a little extra left over. I know I try to drink about a gallon a day, and I don't always meet that goal. Even on the days where I'm working out 3-4 hours a day, I don't always meet that goal. I'll usually have a little bit left over. So if you can take that little bit left over and, use it for whatever you need, washing up or something like that, because we said the taps might not be working, especially if there's no electricity. Having that little bit of extra water left over per person per day is going to help out quite a bit. Now, believe it or not, water can actually be a little bit more challenging to store than food. They make like hydration bricks, I believe they're called. Big bricks that you can store however many gallons of water in. You can also buy gallon jugs, but to keep 94 of those or whatever the hell on hand, that can be a problem. Another thing that people like to do is you can get those water cooler water bottles and have them delivered right to your home, and they, I believe, are 5 gallons at a time, and that can really help out and cut down on the amount of space that you're using to store your water. They also make like big water storage drums. Some of them are like 55 gallons. Some of them are even a little more. That can be a good option, but it can also take up a lot of space. So maybe what you might like to do is have a 55-gallon drum of water, some water bottles, a couple of boxes, pallets, whatever, boxes of water, water bottles, also some gallon jugs. If you're creative, you'll definitely find a way to make it work. One thing I'll tell you about that is to go ahead and rotate your water storage. So believe it or not, water will go bad after a while. So maybe you rotate it out, and every 6 months or something, you use that water and you change it out. And that's a pretty solid option for storing it. So if you've got some of those 5-gallon jugs of, water cooler things, a couple of crates of water, 55-gallon drum, just do a little bit of math and you'll be able to figure it out, and you'll definitely make it work. Another thing to think about here is having a means to go ahead and treat dehydration. It doesn't have to be that you're roaming around in the gosh damn desert to get dehydrated. Maybe someone gets sick, maybe someone's just doing a lot of extra work around the house and haven't been drinking a lot. Having some powdered Pedialyte is a really solid option. I know if you have the big bottles of Pedialyte, those can actually go bad after a while, but the powdered stuff tends to last a little longer, powdered Gatorade even. Another thing is an old Bedouin trick is to just take a slice of lime and a very small pinch of sea salt and sprinkle those into your water. Now, obviously, storing lemons can be a challenge, but if you were to store a box of sea salt, that would be a great idea. And if you just sprinkled, a very small pinch in to that gallon of water, it can go ahead and give you the electrolytes that you really need. And there's plenty of different powders and stuff out on the market that, are laced with like amino acids and all that type of stuff. Warning about that is a lot of them have a lot of sodium in them, so be careful what you buy. But especially if you're the type of person who likes a little flavor in their beverage, then, Gatorade, Pedialyte, stuff like that can be a solid option. Just realize also that if you are more sedentary, that stuff tends to have salt in it, and as the Gatorade has more sugar in it and stuff like that. So just think about it that way. Use it when you need it. You don't need to store a lot of it, but have the means to treat dehydration before it becomes a bigger problem, whether that be from diarrhea or whatever. Now, another thing to think about here, mentioning diarrhea, dysentery or whatever, is if you should be getting your water from a tap, who's to say that with all the storm runoff and all that crap, maybe your water might have gotten tainted. Who knows? So if you're going to be, not drinking that water that is safe, think about boiling it. Another thing you can do is take, I've heard it said, if you take 2 drops of bleach per quart of water and then let that sit for like a half hour, that it should go ahead and kind of sterilize it. I've not personally tried that. I do have experience with like the water purification tabs. Those things can make your water taste a little nasty, so maybe having a little, Kool-Aid or whatever to put in your water might make it taste a little better. Boiling definitely can be a solid option as well as treating it. If you do both, you're doubly safe there. It's always good. So just be aware about that. And I would definitely do some research on my own if I were you on how to treat water safely and as well as how to store it for maximum shelf life. You might have heard before about filling up your bathtub or bathtubs or whatever, or sinks with water before something happens. And if you know that, big ass storm's coming and you have the time to do so, it might not be a bad option. I wouldn't necessarily use that water for drinking, but if you could fill a couple of sinks and a bathtub or whatever with some water, that does give you a little extra, edge there and a little extra breathing room as far as, either washing the dishes or whatever you need. Hygiene definitely is an important thing. You don't want to neglect that. You can buy like shower wipes or whatever to keep yourself clean, but definitely keep yourself clean. Make sure your family stays, hygienic about things, because bad hygiene is where disease spreads, and you want to make sure and take every effort to avoid disease spreading. And we'll, like I said, go over that more in the medical portion of this series here. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is where the hell do you store all this food and water? It honestly kind of depends on where you live. I mean, if you're in an apartment, you might have to get kind of creative about this. But where there is a will, there definitely is a way. Now, another thing people like to do is take one closet and dedicate it to that. Some people, put it in their garage. Some people put it here and there. But what I will say is, no matter where you're storing all this stuff, make sure to be discreet about it. You don't want other people to necessarily know that you're the guy with a couple months of food and water, because obviously if they don't have shit after 3 days, their pantry's bare, and they're going to be coming to you and saying, well, can I have some of your food, please? And you're going to have to say very politely but very sternly, no, you can't, go away. And that's going to cause a whole shitload of problems. So what you really want to do is keep it on the DL that you're doing this. You don't want anybody to know, even friends, even family, because you don't know, look, little Johnny tells his buddy tells his buddy, his buddy tells his mommy, and down the chain it goes. So you really want to be as low-key about this as possible. It doesn't mean you have to be ultra, classified secretive about it, but it does certainly mean that don't store it out in the open if you can avoid it, at least not all of it, and definitely try to make every effort to just be discreet about things. That way, should anything ever happen, your family is okay. Your couple of guests, they're with you, they're staying with you, they're helping out, maybe providing some extra hands around the house, some security or whatever. They're okay. And that's kind of, you want to keep it at that. So, don't bring it out until you need it. Definitely examine it monthly, bi-monthly, whatever. But don't make a show of it, certainly. And don't let other people know that you have it. So this has been a brief discussion about storing food and water and a little bit of prepping, just in case. You never know. I hope you all have enjoyed it and got something good out of it. If you like this kind of information, you can go to www.protriptips.com for our newest DVD, Travel Safety for Americans Abroad. It's 8+ hours of all kinds of stuff like this, survival hacks, how to stay safe while traveling, or even, sheltering in place or bugging out, all kinds of great stuff like this. Really amazing stuff you're not going to find elsewhere. If you're interested in any hand-to-hand or empty-hand combatives, www.gutterfightingsecrets.com is my original gutter fighting DVD. That's filled with some pretty righteous stuff right there as far as how to be able to go ahead and defend yourself without any weapons and just your empty hands. It's also got some good stuff about dealing with terrorism and active shooters and stuff like that when you don't have the luxury of being armed, which seems like is more and more places these days. So with all those plugs in mind, please, go ahead, check them out. They're definitely priced very reasonably. Reason is, I'm more interested in getting this stuff out than making a crap load of money off you guys. You don't deserve someone trying to scam you or rob you for your hard-earned cash, especially if you're the type of person with security in mind. I do personally feel like I have a duty to go ahead and share this information with y'all because you guys are the type of people that will go ahead and make sure our country stays safe and your neighbors and families stay safe regardless of what happens. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it once again. Thank you for checking out this channel, checking out this video. Please remember that you are your first and last line of defense. Until next time, this has been Will Sherland with Gutter Fighting Secrets. Stay safe.